My name is Jared Mercadante. I'm a DRM specialist with the Tokyo DRM Hub of the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery. We've just finished the Lifeline presentation, and I'm here with Stefan Holgate, lead economist of the Climate Change Group, and June Rentschler, economist, the two lead authors of the report, Lifeline's a Resilient Infrastructure Opportunity. Stefan, can you speak a little bit about the benefits and challenges faced by developing countries and governments in implementing resilient infrastructure?
Well, so the first thing we tried to do with this report was to get a sense of the scale of the problem and looking at the costs of not having resilient infrastructure. And in that, there is the cost that everybody can see, which are the damaged roads, the power plants that get damaged and needs to be repaired, the problems with water pipes. But there is also the cost that we don't see, which is the impact of infrastructure disruptions on people and on firms trying to compete and to grow. And what we find is the cost that we don't see is more important than the cost that we see. So one of the first message of the report is people tend to underestimate the problem and not to do enough about it because of all of these consequences for users, people, families, businesses that we don't see very much, we don't take into account when we design infrastructure, and therefore there is a huge opportunity in doing better in that topic.
Thank you. June, can you speak a little bit about the concerns of actual cost in implementing resilient infrastructure solutions? This is also a concern that governments may have, and it'd be good to get your perspective on this type of question.
Sure. That's really one of the key questions we try to address with this report. And the answer is very clear. We found that the most expensive option is not to invest in resilient infrastructure because of all the costs that Stefan just mentioned on households, on firms. And we estimate, for instance, that if you do not, the cost of inaction, if you do not invest in resilient infrastructure for a decade, the cost would be in the range of about $1 trillion for low and middle income countries. And what we also found is that the extra cost of making infrastructure investments that are going to happen anyway to make them resilient is actually very small compared to the total investment cost, in the range of about 3% of the total investment volume. And another thing that's, I think, very important to highlight is that when you do invest in resilient infrastructure resilience, the benefit ratio that you get out of your investment is very good. So we see that overall in our global estimate, for every dollar that you invest in infrastructure resilience, you get benefits of about $4 in return, and in some cases it can be a lot higher than that.
But demand on the government side is so high for the construction of new infrastructure. So how can government decisions be supported in prioritizing which infrastructure they need to implement to build the greatest amount of resilience with things when they have limited assets and resources to do so?
Right. It was also one of the challenges that we faced in writing this report was the lack of data. So very often you look at, especially in low and middle income countries, hazard information is limited, climate change data forecasts are limited, very uncertain. So there's, especially for governments in the international community, they can play a huge role in making sure that this kind of information is not only available but freely available, so that it can be used quickly, cost effectively. For instance, in the report we have one example about digital elevation models, which can be very important, especially in urban settings, to decide where to invest first and what kind of investments to do. And we estimate that to develop such digital elevation models in all urban areas, in all low and middle income countries, would cost in the range of $40 to $200 million, which sounds like a lot, but with this information you could do very comprehensive risk assessments that inform hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure investments every year.